For his part, the Chief Minister says his government has been clear since March about the discrete contact with Spain. Fabian Picardo also says they have been clear in stating that there was no separate bilateral process in relation to Gibraltar. According to Mr Picardo, Mr Borrell has simply confirmed the Gibraltar government's position. Well, the Chief Minister joins us now in the studio. Good evening, Mr
Good evening.
Picardo. Good evening. Well, we heard it today, confirmed in the clearest terms by Josep Borrell.
Well, I think all that Josep Borrell has said today is to echo exactly the same position that was stated explicitly by the former Spanish president, Mariano Rajoy, I think in the spring or early summer, after one of the General Affairs Councils of the European Union, when he specifically said Spain is negotiating with Gibraltar. Now, at that time, I think people here picked up that nuance, but it wasn't carried through into the Spanish newspapers. Now, today here, people have picked up the same nuance again. The position of the government of Gibraltar has been, since I made a ministerial statement, I think in March this year, that we are starting a process of discrete contact with Spain. I haven't talked about the lateralism there. I've wanted to ensure that we've respected how that process is ongoing in order to deliver the right result. But if I can just take up one issue out of what you said a moment ago, the future relationship that Gibraltar has with the European Union will be in an agreement between the United Kingdom and the European Union, not between the United Kingdom and Spain. But the specific arrangements which relate to Gibraltar and Spain can only be agreed between Gibraltar and Spain.
But Spain has to agree to it. It has to go through Spain first. They have a veto as well, don't they? So.
I don't agree that they have a veto. The government of Gibraltar and the United Kingdom have been very clear that on one side of the table there are people who will themselves not agree things unless one of their number agree it. But our position is that this is about the whole of the European Union negotiating with the United Kingdom and Gibraltar being a part of that.
OK, I don't want to labour the point too much, but just very quickly, discrete contact with Spain is quite different from hammering out a detailed agreement.
Well, I don't know what people thought we were going to do in the discrete contact other than deal with the issues that were live in Brexit. My ministerial statement was about the issues that had been identified and how we would pursue that. So I think it's very important that we realise that what Senor Rajoy said at the time, what Senor Borrell has said today, and what I said in the context of my ministerial statement is all exactly the same. And it's about the process that is ongoing, which is in the wider Brexit context. And therefore, it's about the 27 on the one hand and the institutions of the European Union with the United Kingdom and all the nations that make up the United Kingdom and Gibraltar in the context of this negotiation.
OK, you mentioned 27 on the one hand. We've seen how tough Brexit negotiations are, yet Gibraltar are here negotiating directly those details with Spain. Can I take it that the UK is not involved in those discussions? And how does that sit with you? I mean, it's a bit like David versus Goliath, isn't it?
The Brexit negotiations for the United Kingdom are being led by the Prime Minister. And Gibraltar is fully involved in those negotiations. Matters which relate to Gibraltar are very often led by Gibraltar. But look, the United Kingdom is an important part of how we are looking at our future beyond Brexit. And we have colleagues in the Foreign Office in London who are a part of how we look at the potential for Gibraltar to interface with the EU in future and how we look at the way that we unlock Gibraltar's connection for 46 years with the European Union. We're working together on these issues. I don't want to be pressed on the lateralism because I think we have to still be discreet about these points. You've got the statements from Mariano Rajoy, you've got the statements from Josep Borrell. I think they speak for themselves.
We'll go into the details a little bit later on. I just wanted to ask you, Josep Borrell has struck an optimistic tone on these talks, possibly underlining the importance to the EU that a deal is struck sometime soon. How confident are you that Gibraltar will fare well as a result of this agreement?
Well, let me put it this way. One of the things that has emerged in the past 48 hours is that the new Spanish president, Pedro Sanchez, told Monsieur Barnier that he wants Gibraltar to be the first part that is agreed and not be left until the end. This echoed the words of Mr Borrell sometime earlier this week when he said Gibraltar should not be, I think last week, a rock on the road to a Brexit agreement. It should be the earliest possible agreement. We're all optimistic that with goodwill we can achieve an agreement. But we are at the moment, in my view, facing peak Brexit. The next 6 weeks will determine whether there is an agreement or not. Many of your viewers may have seen the Prime Minister last night on Panorama. Really something quite unexpected, that the Prime Minister will go on Panorama to sell the Chequers agreement. This is an important important part in the history of the United Kingdom and Gibraltar. In the next 6 weeks, there will be peaks and troughs. There will be good times and bad times in this negotiation. And it's a negotiation we haven't brought upon ourselves, that's been brought upon us.
We'll go into
look
more
out
details.
for those issues and the ups and downs.
We'll go into some more details with you in just a few moments, Chief Minister. Concessions. What concessions are Spain asking for?
Let's be very clear about the position of the government of Gibraltar. We have said from the very beginning that there will be absolutely no concessions in respect of sovereignty, jurisdiction or control. Now, Spain is saying, and this is not just Josep Borrell or Pedro Sánchez, this is Mariano Rajoy and Alfonso Dastis, that they're not putting sovereignty on the table. That's not the issue that they want to pursue now. But we have to be very conscious that although they're not pursuing sovereignty simpliciter, the flag, joint sovereignty, etc., they may seek to have some of the elements of sovereignty imputed into the negotiation. That's why jurisdiction and control are as important, the limiting words that we put to our red lines, as the word sovereignty. Nobody can expect to see a government of Gibraltar led by me with the GSLP and the Liberals in government actually make any concessions on any fundamental issue. But this is a negotiation, and it's a negotiation that we have not brought upon ourselves. It's a negotiation brought upon us by Brexiteers and the decision to leave the European Union, and we have to negotiate on commercial issues in a way that ensures that we obviate the risk as much as possible for Gibraltar in the future.
You talk about jurisdiction and control. Can I take it you're referring to perhaps the airport, the frontier? How much give and take is there going to be on those issues in particular?
There's absolutely going to be no give whatsoever from Gibraltar.
They'll want something though, won't they?
Well, but look, they know what they're not going to get. And when it comes to Gibraltar, the people of Gibraltar have been very clear on the issue of the airport from 1987 and subsequently. There is an agreement done by the former government of Gibraltar in respect of Gibraltar Airport at Córdoba. We were against that agreement, but in 2006 it was done by the former administration, and in 2007 the former Chief Minister won an election based on that agreement, and we have to respect it, and an airport was built as a result of that agreement. But there'll be no give by Gibraltar whilst I'm Chief Minister on any matter which relates to the airport or our jurisdiction or our sovereignty or our control of it.
So can you just tell me very, very briefly what aspects are you discussing? What's going to constitute this agreement?
Well, if you look at the things that have been said already, the things that I talked about in my ministerial statement and the things that successive Spanish foreign ministers have talked about, the agenda is a clear one relating to illicit traffic, to the environment, matters relating to air transport services in the European Union. Now, you can discuss all of those things and come to positive conclusions that work for all sides and which are sovereignty neutral, or you can try and push it one way or the other. If we don't push to try and cross Spanish red lines, I would expect they would understand that any push to cross Gibraltarian red lines will be equally unsuccessful. For example, on the issue of fiscal transparency, people in Gibraltar will know that the government of Gibraltar, since I've been Chief Minister, and to be fair, under my predecessor also, has been pressing Spain to engage with us in exchange of information. That's absolutely the right approach that we have taken before. Brexit has actually brought us together on these issues.
Mr Picardo, if there is a no-deal Brexit, where does any deal struck directly between Gibraltar and Spain, where are we left with that?
So the assumption I think you're making in that question is that Gibraltar and Spain have managed to come to terms. So let's assume that for one moment. Let's be optimistic and hope that is the case.
I'm sure there's a negotiation still to take place, so I'm sure that hasn't happened yet.
But let us just be optimistic and say, let's say Spain and Gibraltar come to terms. What happens then if the UK and the rest of the European Union do not come to terms? If there isn't a withdrawal agreement which can include a protocol that relates to Gibraltar? Well, that's work that is ongoing at the moment. We need to protect Gibraltar even in those circumstances. The fact that there is an element of goodwill in Spain is very positive because it demonstrates that we don't have to treat each other badly the morning after Brexit simply because this has been visited upon us.
If an agreement is struck, will we be seeing both yourself and Mr Sánchez at a press conference, a joint press conference together?
Look, I think the important thing here is not to talk about any such potential eventualities. What we have to talk about is ensuring that we get detail which works for Gibraltar, and that detail de-risks the future for us in the context of both the implementation period and, where possible, the future. But remember that what we're talking about at the moment is only the withdrawal agreement and the implementation period. We are not talking about the future arrangements. There'll be a political statement about that, but there won't be a legal agreement about that. So I'm not interested now in anything other than Michael Llamas, Joseph Garcia, Albert Mena and I being able to bring to Gibraltar a deal that works in the very difficult circumstances in which we find ourselves. And I say to your viewers, expect peaks and troughs, expect good days and bad days. This is the most difficult part of this process.
And just to clarify very quickly, 6 weeks or thereabouts.
To the end of October, which is when a deal is expected. It may extend to the middle of November. If we go beyond that, it starts to get very difficult and very fractious indeed.